and welcome to another episode of Tech Hour. I'm your host, Simone Smith Bean, and today we have a very important guest with us today. We have Miss Adella Forrester. Welcome to the show, Adella.
Hi, Simone. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So I want to introduce you to our audience so that they know who you are. So Adela is the founder of the Nakamoto Group, a space for innovators and technologists in the Eastern Caribbean region. The group's mission is to promote responsible innovation and fostering relations with the regulator in an effort to align interests without starving innovation. She is a legal professional, entrepreneur, and an early adopter of cryptocurrency. She's a firm believer in the adoption and preservation of financial autonomy. Adela has worked with digital currency since 2001 and Bitcoin for over 13 years. So, Adela, you are a veteran in this industry. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm always excited to talk about anything crypto and definitely anything crypto and the Caribbean. So it's really, truly wonderful to be here.
It is certainly something close to my heart as well. Being a part of the blockchain, the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance, I think as a group, and you're in the group as well,
Yeah.
we tend to focus heavily on how we can continue to support the industry across the Caribbean. And it's so important. So I really appreciate the dedication, and you even been in the space longer than me. I didn't start in the space until 2016, and you would think that that's still dinosaur years.
Yeah, it's still a long time. You're still considered an early adopter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. People don't realize how quick this industry runs and moves.
Yeah, yeah. There's a joke that, 1 year in Bitcoin is like 10 years in the real world. I mean, it's so true. I mean, so many things happen, you know.
That is so true. So let's get into it, Adela. So let's talk
Sure.
about the adoption of cryptocurrency across the Caribbean. There's been a lot of talk through many different countries about CBDCs and the adoption of cryptocurrency, and everybody wants to get on this bandwagon. But do we understand what the bandwagon is all about? And that is one of the things that I find, that a lot of our governments may want to be involved, but may not understand exactly what the industry is involved in. So tell me a little bit about how you found the adoption of cryptocurrency in your region, and how do you think governments are faring with bringing it into the mainstream for economic purposes?
Yeah, so funny, a lot of things happen in the crypto space, as we talked about. Um, but it's funny because I've seen the governments move faster than I've ever seen them move for adoption, and it's a it's a lot more. Um, I'm encouraged by it. This is not 2013 or 2014. So, for example, in the Eastern Caribbean, just recently, the Eastern Caribbean bill was circulated, the virtual currency bill, they drafted a bill, was circulated to all of the member states. And the purpose of that bill was to provide for the regulation and the supervision of the virtual assets businesses in the Eastern Caribbean. And what it does is introduce a licensing regime to be overseen by the local regulators uh, in each of the 8 member countries, with the aim of giving some sort of guidelines and guidance on what would be expected of a virtual asset service provider. And those are the things that you would kind of expect, like the registration, a license, authority by a financial unit, by a financial investigatory unit, and oversight. So rules perhaps on escrow limits and that sort of thing, and filing suspicious activity reports, etc. And also in some of the bills, access by the financial unit to access the books, to just for a little bit more of that oversight. So that's happened down here. I know that was a bit of a mouthful. And so far, Dominica has passed it, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, and just recently, actually in December, when everybody was sleeping, St. Lucia. So that's a lot, Simone. I mean,
Yes,
you have to admit.
true. The fact that they've actually gone ahead and implemented legislation to really bring in industry is very important, because I was waiting. I mean, Bermuda moved, really quickly. The Bahamas came right behind them. And now it's been a race as to who can bring the more business to their shores. And so, although everybody has been focusing on this digital assets and adoption of it, it's really about supporting the industry so that these companies are moving within our Caribbean nations, and that we're really fostering those relationships so that we can be a center for innovation. That was the whole idea behind it. So it's great that the legislation has been passed in St. Lucia and Dominica and places like that. So I'm waiting for Barbados to come on as well.
So it's interesting that you say that, because it's both, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. It's a good thing if you know what you're doing and you know exactly what you're trying to regulate, and you know exactly the parameters of those things, and you understand a bit of the technical limitations, right? It could be a really, really terrible thing if you don't, and you're just ticking off a box because FATF has recommended it, and the ECCB has sent down a draft, and there are bank regulators here, right? And so that's one of my main concerns, and I have in talks with the FSRA here, our financial authority, and I find them actually very receptive, very curious, very awesome people, is to create a sort of platform for the innovators, for the people that are building things, for the enthusiasts to come in and have their voice heard with them, to start that conversation, kind of like an innovation hour, that kind of thing. So they now better understand what's going on in the space, and they can better advise on that. And they've agreed to sort of take this case by case basis, where they will open up to conversations with people seeking to get licensed. And I thought that was incredibly open minded. So I'm excited to see what happens.
That collaboration is so key.
Girl, yes.
It is so key because you're right. I think that our governments have really tried to go through this adoption process based on what they've seen other regions do. And then they hear from the FATF and say, hey, we should do this, you should do that. And they go to Davos and they hear all of the amazing things that they could be doing, but don't necessarily understand what is involved in doing all of these things. And even the technology that's coming along with a lot of the companies that are coming within the countries and doing things. So having that relationship between the regulator and the innovator is so key to really understanding where the adoption of the legislation needs to go, where we should be looking, and how we should be monitoring these to safeguard users as well. So because the whole
Yeah.
point of this is to ensure that users are are safe and
Consumer
people
protection. Consumer
100%.
protection at the top of the list, as far as I'm
100%.
concerned. Yeah.
And we've seen the issue with FTX in the Bahamas where they have had a meltdown, not knowing. And I have to give it to the Securities Commission in the Bahamas. They moved really swiftly in trying to protect the assets of a lot of the users on the platform. But at the same time, we have to be proactive in some of these things and continue monitoring and having that dialogue. And so they're also looking at making their legislation more robust. Changes are coming, obviously. And so they're going to be maybe reporting requirements that may not have been in place before, but having that dialogue, having that understanding of what it is platforms do, how DeFi even gets in the space. I mean, that's a whole nother can of worms when you bring
That
DeFi
is that is
into it.
Yeah,
And
but if
so
you don't know what you're regulating, you can't regulate it
it's the
effectively.
truth.
And
It's the
that's
truth.
that's the thing. And I certainly wouldn't want to see us make the mistakes and be like literally just have ministries of reaction as opposed to being proactive about it. Like we're always on the defense down here. And we need to be.
Reaction. I Yes,
Yeah.
we're always the reactors and not the four actors.
Yeah, but I do believe that custodians, if you are a custodian of funds, that you should have the most stringent rules where those third party assets are concerned that you have been tasked to take care of. Just as banks have very strict rules on what they can and cannot do, I think we should have those down here. And one of the key distinctions between exchanges, crypto exchanges, and banks is that a lot of times banks are actually insured against loss. And that option, by the way, if anybody's listening and you're an innovator and you're in the insurance space, wow, what a great opportunity. It just doesn't exist for crypto exchanges. And if when it does, it's extremely expensive. I've been in this scenario where, I had to explore such options. And, I think at a very minimum, we should have some sort of escrow requirement, and we should have that insurance requirement as well.
So I think that is a very, very important point. The insurance aspect of it with protecting the custodians. There are no insurance products. There aren't even D&O insurance for tech companies or
It
crypto.
exists. It exists, Simone. It does. But it's so extremely expensive that
Yeah.
a lot of times when a crypto company is insistent on having such a product, they will actually segregate some of their profits. Well, the good ones will segregate some of their profits to put aside for that kind of insurance, like D&O insurance.
Well, see, without it, you're really putting yourself and your team at risk. Because
Absolutely.
a lot of these platforms, we find it has happened to me before where I've been on a platform and my particular account has been hacked. I go to the platform seeking some assistance with the hacking, or that the all of the transactions are not they're not. So you must be suspicious if all of this happened and it's not accessed by my IP address, and their response to it is that there's nothing that we can do about it because it's an open exchange. When you have your security and you have your own wallet, that's different. You're literally allowing access to your wallet for that period of time in order for you to trade. And so that's a lot of reasons why people, and I don't think people understand the difference between just having your crypto on an exchange platform in their normal public wallet and you having your own private wallet, and then the protections that you can lay on that. And then those platforms really have no, I mean, they could get the insurance that is expensive, but they would have to pass it on to the user. And so if we're looking to be agile, there has to be more technology and insure tech that do come on stream that will be able to protect the custodian aspect, even your wallet aspect. I mean, if I had uh a plan that I can put on my private wallet that is going to allow me to ensure the crypto that I have, especially if you have a lot, then I would buy that. But when is that product going to be coming to mainstream? So I know Bermuda is very heavy on the insurance side. They're also very heavy on the innovation of insurtech. And so I'm hoping that one of these companies that are there are looking at this. I've heard of maybe one or two who are looking at the purposes for trading. So when you put your crypto on open market trades, you can spot it and have it insured for loss purposes. There people are looking at that. But as far as you being able to protect your crypto on a daily basis, just consumer basis, then I think that's something that's still lacking in the market. And I think it's something that we can really, that will take hold very quickly. So anybody listening out there who has the site, yeah, bring it. We need it now. We need
Well,
it now. Um,
there's an old, sorry, go ahead.
no go,
Sorry.
no go.
Oh, I was going to say there's an old saying in the space, not your keys, not your coins. And, that's something that people have to be extremely cognizant of, is that a lot of times when you store your assets on a platform, you need to understand whether the platform provides a sort of custodial or non-custodial service. And a lot of times the service is custodial, and you need to know and make those distinctions. Another thing is that you shouldn't have a ton of your assets on any exchange hot. I never recommend that sort of thing. So that's something that consumers should look into. And if anybody's listening who's interested in doing this, you should look up the difference between a hot and a cold wallet. If you have anything substantial, you should look to segregate those in cold wallets immediately, because not your keys, not your coins. Another thing is that when you do use exchanges, you should at the very minimum set up your two-factor authentication at least. And the final thing I'll have to say about this is that I always tell folks, if you're going to use a foreign exchange, and let's say you're going to use a US exchange, ensure that that exchange is registered with the Treasury through FinCEN, and ensure that they have a license in the states that they're operating from. And you can always scroll down to the bottom of the page, and you can find that in the legal, and you can find a list of their licenses. If you're really crazy about doing your due diligence, you go look it up. Also, you can do that by state. So that state licensure will provide a lot more consumer protection. So you have recourse if something goes wrong, and that federal registration does convey on the exchange limits. So, for example, they have to do reporting, record keeping, they have to file transaction reports, suspicious activities. So you just find their dealings to be a bit more different and a bit more responsible. So, that's
Let's talk some more about these cold wallets, because I think a lot of people learn their lesson from having lost a lot of money in
mm-hmm.
Celsius and FTX, and just not knowing that they could go back to the original. So when crypto first was on the move, we had devices like boxes like this. Like we had a box, right? We had a box, and it had a key that we would put in the information, and that kept our crypto on our keychain. A lot of people used to walk around with it. I know people who are new to the space don't even know about these hard wallets that we had. But a cold wallet, it must explain to the audience about the how we can get cold wallets, or are they digitized? Is it something that we have to carry around? How do we really access those types of technology?
Yeah, so a cold wallet is a type of crypto wallet or digital wallet, if you may, let's be more broad, that will store your crypto offline. So there's no online connectivity, which will provide in a lot of instances. This is not clad in, don't take my final word on this, but it will protect your assets more than if it were online access. Say, if it's on an exchange, it can be hacked or whatever. And so when a user creates or gets a cold wallet, which is a physical, actual store device that looks sometimes like a thumb drive, or there are other devices that look like little baby old school calculators. Some of them, like the Trezor, which I think is a good one. I like Trezor. I like the Ledger wallet as well. They'll have to go through the steps, download the application, follow the instructions. There's probably a sheet with your for you to write down your private key. Keep that safe always. Never lose that. Send a copy to your mom so she can put it in her safety deposit box if you trust your mom.
Yes.
But definitely what you have to understand is that if you lose that physical device, you can lose all of the assets in there if you don't have some kind of redundancy plan for it. I don't know if I explained that well.
No, yes, 100%. Those are just exactly what I understand it to be. It's like a device that you can keep with you. You could even put it in your safety deposit box. Make
Yeah.
sure you have the information, not to how to get into it, and to recover any information that you have, but it's there. It's in your possession. It's not sitting on a website. It's not sitting on one of these exchange platforms. And I mean, even though there are hot wallets that are sitting on exchanges that separate your currency from the actual exchange.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few of those out there, and people can do their research, because we're not sponsored by any of those
No, we're
companies.
not.
Name, but there are a few that they do allow you to have a wallet off. I mean, not offline, but online, but protected away from the exchange, and you can utilize that. But these devices are so key if you are really an avid invest in crypto. And my next question is with investment in crypto, because I was reading an article the other day in one of the known crypto news spaces, and they're suggesting that crypto winter is pretty much over, and the spring is going to bring a lot more investment, and people are investing in crypto. And I've always said that although crypto can look like an investment, crypto really to me is more of a medium of exchange, or you can make a hedge off the value because of utilization, but really looking at it as an investment product, or looking at it as something that part of your portfolio. What do you think about people investing and having it in their portfolio, like stocks, bonds, and shares, and all of that? Because it's not a security token. That's different. I can see you saying, I want to invest in security tokens for or certain organizations or something of that nature. But for crypto, how do you feel about that as an investment?
Yeah. So, it's funny because the space is kind of divided into there's a schism between your investor type, the people who use it for speculative reasons, and more of your ideologues. I kind of fall into the class of like the ideologue. I love crypto because of the permissionless, trustless nature of it. You don't need an intermediary. It really does promote financial autonomy, which
Freedom.
I think is powerful, especially for us as sort of marginalized populations and
Yes.
and women. Can you imagine a woman in Afghanistan? I mean, hell, a woman here who has some sort of bad situation can actually hold her money privately. You don't need to go and ask the bank for permission. So I think that's a really powerful tool for the disenfranchised, unbanked, the underbanked, and the poor. There's never been anything that has been so powerful for those marginalized people. So I think I'm kind of running off with with
Oh,
the
it's
passion.
freedom. It's bringing freedom to us, to a
Yeah,
group of people who never had it before. And I feel the
yeah.
same way. I feel like crypto is the savior for emerging markets when we have not been able to be included in a lot of things. Look at the de-risking in
I
our
was just gonna say you like took the words out of my mouth. De-risking.
look at the
Yeah,
de-risking that's happening in the region. Every time you turn around, either a bank is leaving or they're telling you can't transfer or there's a problem with your wife. That's a problem because we still need to do business. I know it seems like we may be a small group or a small region, but together we are a couple million, good much billion people who
yeah,
need to commerce. And our country still needs to survive. And then we have counterparts in Africa who also need to have access. And so without having something simple like crypto that can give you that access to world markets, then you really are lacking in a lot of ways. And so I feel like that's what it's for. I feel like it's for inclusion
yeah,
more than it is for the speculation of it. And people do utilize it for speculation and making money. That's possible. If you have it, do it,
yeah.
but
Exactly.
be ready for the risk.
That's right. So that's right. Don't adopt more risk than you can afford to stomach. And a good friend of mine always used to say that invest into crypto as much as you would take into a pile in a casino in Vegas, throw it on the floor, throw lighter fluid on it, and
you
burn it up.
know,
Like he's like, that's the amount. That's the amount you invest into crypto. You
true.
know, but
If you're ready to lose it, get ready to lose it if just in
yeah,
case. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, we have to be real. We have to be real about what it is
yeah,
at
yeah,
the end of the day and what gives it liquidity because a lot of people don't understand that as well. So that's going right into the education of it. I mean,
yeah.
how do you think we're faring in as a region with educating our people about cryptocurrency? Have we been the advocates in the way that people need? Have we been able to provide that information? I don't know if we're doing a great job. What do you think?
Well, I mean, we suggest some sort of collective cabal, which we do things differently here than rich bees do it up there. Bahamas,
I,
the
I
fancy
can take
people.
Bahamas out of the rich, but I mean, yes, I got you.
No, but I don't think there's any sort of collective for information. But what I do know is that the young people are going out there. I've lived mostly in St. Lucia. St. Lucia has been my home base for the last 2-ish or so years. And what I have observed is an incredible asymmetric demand to know, to understand, to buy, to really just get involved in this thing that a lot of people just don't understand. I think what's different now than was different, say, 15 years ago or so, is that everybody just does have access to information. So, which, by the way, go fact check everything I've said on this show if you're watching this. But
Do
everybody
your
does.
research. I'll give the disclaimer. The information that we're providing on this show is not meant to give you any legal or any professional advice. We are avid persons who support this, both legal professionals, but we are not giving advice.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. Um, but yeah, so there is a lot of information, and there are trading groups down here. So it doesn't matter. There's no formal exchange. down here that I know of for sure. But there are little OTC operations, and there certainly is a lot of activity in peer-to-peer groups. You can't stop peer-to-peer.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so I think that we as a collective maybe need to think about a good way of even having our mid-range age persons understand why it's important to understand digitalization, period, because I
Mm-hmm.
think the adoption of digitalization is going to change the way we do business, period, at all, like full stop. I've noticed that a lot of the government agencies move to digitizing their processes, which we are very all happy about, because before things take forever, and now
Are
that we
they
have
take
to,
less forever now, or?
oh yeah, I mean they still take forever, because I think Caribbean people are just long-winded by nature. I just think we just
Yeah.
take everything takes forever, period. And a lot of people who come to do business don't understand the taking forever aspect of it. And I try to explain to persons, like, it's just patience that is required, for this. But we have to move better. We have to change. We have to be agile. Like you
Yeah.
said, we can't be the reactionary. We have to be the proaction, for these things, especially if we want to compete on the world stage. We act like we on the world stage. We pretend to be on the world stage. We have leaders from our region speaking to big organizations in the world, and are being named the most influential females and all of that, and we still ain't got no real, where's the substance behind it? That's all I'm saying. Where's the substance behind it? So I support it, but I would like to see more substance, for sure.
Yeah, me too. And unfortunately, this is a sort of thing that will chase away innovation. And
Mm.
we've been suffering from brain drain. I mean, come on, you went to school. You probably went to school in Caribbean, and probably 50% of the people that you, or more of the people that you went to school with, work elsewhere.
I don't live
And
there.
you see, you went, and this has been a huge problem for a really long time. We cannot retain our talent, and it's just so difficult to do very basic things like trigger warning, get a bank account. uh, that should just simply not be such a difficult thing. And I always say this, that the one of the easiest ways to track crimes and criminal is to bank the money. You want to catch them, bank them. You should be able
Yes,
to, yeah, honestly, you should be able to walk
I
in the bank.
agree.
You
I
remember when
agree.
you
I
remember when you were in
agree.
primary school, and the banks would come and they come with little bank books, and
Yes, and
you
trying
don't
to
need.
teach you how to deposit your money and thing. I
And
I
then you had a
agree.
bank account, $5, and you had a bank book.
But
The,
now they're
yeah,
refusing to even bank certain people. I said, so how you supposed to know what's going on if you're not banking them? And I
exactly.
like in this industry particularly, it's so hard to get a bank account. I think the only place that you can do so, and then you have to have a minimum, almost of a minimum of $1 million in some instances, is in the Bahamas. Like everywhere else is like a struggle. So how do you even want to? How are you a country wanting to introduce innovation, but then the innovators who come there can't even do business on a normal basis, can't pay staff, they can't do these things. So that's why I just don't understand the pushback. I mean, I understand the pushback by the banks, totally understand that, but I don't understand the pushback about it from where the government standpoint and their control over, or persuasion over
So I
the
kind of went
adoption.
down. I went down a rabbit hole, and what I determined was this: we are judging the industry. The banking industry is judging by a standard of reducing predicate crimes,
Mm,
when there's almost really no empirical evidence, no quantifiable evidence to support the tightening of the noose, if you may, of
yes.
entry into the legacy financial system, or legfi as I like to call it, right? So there's no evidence that like tightening actually works. And as you've noticed yourself, as a legal professional, as a professional, as a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, the rules never get broadened. They always happen to narrow. So they
Exactly.
always get way more and more restrictive. and that's one of our problems, is that we're adopting these standards because we want to comply with FATF, we want to comply with these international organizations that have levied their requirements on us somehow. And we're so scared of being de-risked, we're so scared of not being able to send money to our kids in Florida to go to school and receive money from over there, and being cut off from the world financial stage, that we over comply.
Certainly. And if they look at, and a lot of banks don't do the research necessary to know what their corresponding banking relationships actually
Right,
do in their space, because a
right.
lot of these banks who you correspond with are doing business in the space, but yet you as a financial institution using those corresponding banking relationships are using that as an excuse to say no, we might lose that relationship if we do business with you, so that's not going to be
Mm-hmm.
possible. That
Yeah,
you have to be advocates for your growth as a
yeah.
institution. And these compliance rules, they're necessary, but there has to be some level of acceptance
They've
when
got to
it
be
comes
smart.
to. They have to be smart,
They've got to be
exactly.
smart,
You have
and
to
we
know
can get
what
a
to.
lot more if we're smart
Exactly.
about it, and not by forcing these institutions to become, this is really dangerous, law enforcement officials.
Certainly, certainly, and it puts it right back on them. So I agree with you 100%. I think that there's a lot of room for more adoption in that space with the banking and also with compliance. And so I think the future is bright. So we got to wrap up. But it's great talking to you. You have to come back again on our show, please, so that
Anytime.
yeah, so that we can talk more about the industry and how the future looks. But so give us a little recap on how you think we are going to fare in the future as a region with cryptocurrency, and what do you think that it holds for us as a region?
I think there's incredible promise, because we are a lot of disenfranchised people, in that we don't have first advantage when it comes to participation in the world economy, and I think crypto enables us to do that, to play on an even more even playing field, if you may. I do think that our governments need to stay on top of it, but kind of be a bit more humble in their game where it comes to their education, their understanding of it, so that they can regulate more effectively, as opposed to more voluminously. But I think we're on the right track. I think we've seen a lot of really new and passionate faces who are certainly advocating for this to move in a more positive direction. And I think we're going to get there.
I think so too. And
Yeah.
I think if we continue to work together
Hmm.
and show the camaraderie within the industry and not shy away from technology, I think when you see the bad actors make us look bad, we just keep on focused on what is important, which is the adoption. So
Right.
thank you so much for your time, Adela. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on the
It
show.
was
And
great.
yes, tune in for next time when we have another guest coming up soon. Tara, our sister Tara Fada will be on a show quite soon as well. So that should be a nice regulatory, legal, focused show. And so if any of you want more information, please look Adela up. She is on all of the social media platforms, and you can find us SBC Corporate Services on Facebook, on Instagram, and also you can find us on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel, and hey, keep the crypto talk going. Thank you for tuning into Tech.